Welcome to this episode of FTK Over the Air. We release a new episode about every other week. We try to keep it about every other week, but travel schedules and recording schedules of our guests are often all over the place, but we're pretty consistent with about every other week. And we talk about forensics in general, the forensics industry. We cover investigations, workflows, and of course, Lynn, we cover the FTK product line because we are Xtero and we do publish the Forensic Toolkit software suite. So, of course, we talk about that because we got a lot of cool stuff going. So we definitely address that. Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I think this is a really important week. If you are listening to us on audio only, you are missing out because guess what? We are real people. Look at us. We're real. We're on video this week. And so this is what we look like. Sorry to disappoint you. And it always makes me laugh every time we're on calls together because Justin records in like a dark recording layer. And I, of course, being girly, I'm like, look at my, ocean themed office since I'm in Florida. So yeah, we couldn't be any more different. But yes, we're the best of friends and podcast hosts, and it's what makes it work.
Yeah, exactly. It's been good. So this week we have a pretty cool guest, I think.
Oh my God. So cool. Maybe the coolest ever yet.
Mm-hmm. Cool, very cool dude. We have Gus Dimitrelos of cyberforensics.com. It's his own business. And he has been in the forensic industry for over 20 years. So he's been doing it for a very long time. And the cool thing about him is he had the foresight to get cyberforensics.com. Who knows how long he's had it, but that was a genius.
What a grab. What a domain grab.
Genius move. But he does a more complete intro for himself when we get him on here in a little bit. But he's worked for the Secret Service. He has his own company now where he does forensics privately. He owns his own thing and runs it, but he does all sorts of investigations, high profile, little ones, everything in between. And we brought him on to talk about a high profile case he's working now. Some of the successes he's had, some of the ways that he approaches it. And it was a really good conversation.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about him is, how do we say this cryptically? So he works on very important assignments that are in the public eye and discussed on major news channels every day. In fact, certain channels in particular, when computers need to be investigated and validated, right? Whose computer is this? Is it really this person's computer? Is it not? It's always in the news. You know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So but he is called upon on these types of assignments to verify and validate, whose computer is this that we're investigating? We should be able to prove that based on forensic investigation. And so the key to me of listening to his conversation, and I bowed out this week. I was like, man, I'm not worthy. You guys just go to town. Oh gosh, I just want you to be able to go deep with him on technical stuff. So I just kind of listened. But what was really neat to me was that when people like Gus, who are former Secret Service, right, in sort of the private sector now, and they get called upon to be a forensic analyst and to comment on something and to perform an investigation, what tool do they choose, right? And they choose FTK. He chooses FTK every time. And I think that's super cool. If you have noticed, over the last several years, right, we're always putting out upgrades. There's always an FTK upgrade. There's always a cool new feature. And if you've sort of dragged your feet a little bit and thought, I don't know if I need that upgrade. I'm good with what I have. It's fine. You probably have a bunch of different tools in your toolbox. That's fine too. We're good with that. We know that's real life. But if you haven't seen some of the newest FTK features in the last year or so, man, Gus is a fan. And I think it's really neat that he very specifically calls out, like Windows system summary, like, oh my gosh, it knocks his socks off. I think that's great. And so it was really fun to listen to him talk about not only the investigations that he's assigned to do or asked to do, again, that are very high profile and very important, and you can't mess them up and you can't get them wrong, and you have to be able to definitively, give your findings. I think it's really cool that he trusts FTK as that solution that he goes to over and over again. So that's a real treat. Again, we sit up here all day long and talk about how great we think FTK is, but it's fun when you've got someone who's very highly esteemed in the forensic community who also relies upon and trusts FTK. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And in this episode, we focus on the workflows that FTK helps you go through. His term is digital sandwiching, which I love. And so we talk heavily about digital sandwiching and how that workflow style helps you put someone behind the keyboard, which is the main objective in digital forensic investigations. And we say keyboard, but it also applies to phone, right? The behind the screen, maybe in that case, but
who's behind the device?
Who's behind the device. And it's super important because all you have is data. You typically don't have a camera recording them doing the thing on the computer. Most people don't do that. And
that's weird.
Yeah.
Let's call that out.
That would be weird.
That would be weird. Right.
But as we talk about in there, maybe this Instagram social media generation will start doing it, recording every aspect, but we'll see. And how FTK gives you that confidence that when you go into trial to talk about it, or you have to write a report, that you're sure of your results, which is super important. You never want to go in and not know what you reported on. There's going to be stuff you don't know, but it better not be in your report. You better know everything in there, and FTK delivers the information up front and very clearly so that you know that information. And we talk about that heavily in this episode. And I think the other thing is, I will say, just as kind of an aside, I kill his name in the intro, like totally slaughter it. And to Gus's credit, his infinite credit, he just smiles and we just continued on with the episode, but it bothered me so much.
He didn't even flinch.
And I may still be saying it wrong, but it was so bad in the initial, like, even I was just like, I rolled my eyes on, I was just like, no, I can't. So I literally cut the audio out and recorded me saying his name and then just dubbed it in. So it's very much like just a terrible dub.
So it's like a Kung Fu movie.
Yeah. I mean, the mouth is kind of on because I'm trying to say the same thing, but like the audio, anyway, but listen, I would rather have that dub than what I did to his name in the actual recording. So you're going to hear that when you listen to the episode. I'm more happy with that than I was with the initial one. Gus will email me and set me straight, of course. But so that's going to be that little dub there. But I was super happy with the conversation that came out. Gus delivers a lot of great information about workflows and about how FTK helps you in that, and some of little known features, I think, tips and tricks of ways to get the most out of FTK, even if you're going to work with somebody else or the next case, and making your efforts in one case roll forward to the next. Super important stuff. In this episode, it's a packed 40 minutes of content. I think we move right along, and it's all good stuff.
Yep. Make time for this one. It's a good one.
Absolutely. All right, Lynn, I think we'll jump in with Gus. And Lynn, I know you're not in the rest of this, so thanks for coming on, and we'll have you listening in and we'll enjoy our time. Okay. And now we have Gus Dimitrelos. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And we're glad to have you. Gus, we introduced you in the intro section, but if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, tell us about yourself in your own words, that'd be cool.
Yeah, not a problem at all. Fast forward, I was in the Secret Service for about 11 years. And once I left the Secret Service, started my own company called Cyber Forensics. While in the Secret Service, I was part of it's called the XSAP program, the Electronic Crime Special Agent program. It was the very first class. It was 1996 or 7, I believe. And just before that, Secret Service sent me off to RCMP to get trained in what was called computer forensics. I did that my entire time in the Secret Service, really from 96 till I left in 2006. And after that, my company, Cyber Forensics, we started doing professional services for had the U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, for 10 years doing contracts, Southern District of Alabama, Central District, or the Northern District. I did it for private, I did it for government, I did it for law enforcement, a lot of corporations, still doing it for Toyota, DHL, corporations that hire me to come in and look for fraud, specifically in those cases. We do a lot of ethical hacking, penetration testing. Company really sticks on the side of forensics and assessments for networks and data breach investigations. And that's really what we do. We don't provide IT services. We really just analyze data or analyze instances of breaches.
That's super interesting. In the time period, I bet you've used Norton Disk Edit from back in the day and chaining the fat and all the way up through the most modern AI analysis tools and all that sort of stuff. Quite the history.
Yeah, Norton, right? Remember Norton? You remember Red, the RCMP version of the Red 32? It was imaging software, command line, everything was that was the time. But it was nice because now, especially with FTK, the way it works, the flow is so quick. The turnaround time for me is, using the tools is a week or less. For me, I don't like to go past the week, no matter what I'm doing, what kind of case I'm doing. And so the way the tool is designed just allows you to really get through something quickly, efficiently, not miss a detail. And for me, it's been my tool forever. It's the one I've been using for a long, long time, 20 plus years.
20 plus years for sure. And that's one of the reasons we want to talk to you is not, it's the scalability, right? It's the speed. You can work with a lot of small cases for sure. But you've worked a lot of large cases and not just Windows. And so one of the things that we've tried to focus on recently was Mac artifacts, and we're talking about a case, and how many artifacts were you looking at in that Mac case?
Oh, it was incredible. And I heard the rumor. I heard that you did a lot of improvements on the Mac side, and boy, did you! I almost 7 million on a MacBook Pro that had a 256 gig drive, so about 238 gigs of data side, and I was blown away. I had not seen the tool being used on a Mac since I tried the Mac. And most of the work we do is on Windows environments, whether it's a server or workstation. For in this case, it was the MacBook. And so we used FTK. I tried FTK against it, and I said, this is phenomenal, which really saves me a lot of money because some of the other tools that are dedicated to the Mac environment or, OS X basically, you don't have to spend the money on buying those anymore, which is very good. And it helps a company like mine.
Yeah. I think the more we can unify stuff together to where it's like, I don't have to jump out to this tool and I don't have to go to that tool. It saves time, if anything, in your investigations, because you're just like, okay, I can, and we're going to talk about this later with your term digital sandwiching, which I love, but we're going to talk about that. But it makes that process of tying the different things together a lot easier when you're located in one kind of environment. And
that's exactly right. And of course, the history of FTK, the indexing certainly is phenomenal. It is far superior than any other tool because it really does locate those keywords, those terms you're looking for in unallocated and compressed files. So it makes it easy to be able to look at the big picture of what you're trying to find versus hoping that you're going to hit the term in a folder called evidence, which never exists.
If only, right?
I wish.
Yeah. The thing I love about index searching, like you said, is it's so quick. I know that there's you also had like the live search, which will go through, but man, sometimes it's just like I need to be able to run search term after search term after search term, and index searching is going to really cut that down because it's just a database. You're just querying that database now, and you can just get right to it.
Yeah, it really makes it effortless for you. It's very quick. It's always precise, and certainly. You can do a lot with the searching, compound searching. Certainly, you can certainly do within terms. I love the within terms. Like for instance, if you do a wire within 2 of transfer, to be able to really include everything related to your investigation, whether it's a fraud investigation or another type of investigation.
For sure. And what type of artifacts for this kind of case were you primarily associated with on this Mac, or interested in this Mac?
For me, the whole key in this one was the identification of who the owner is, who's sitting at the keyboard, who's using the computer, who's responsible for all the information on the computer. So when the newspaper called me, my intent was to not have any lead, meaning I'm gonna do this like every other investigation. I say in every case, the ones and zeros, the binary data doesn't care about R's or D's, it doesn't care about innocent or guilt. It gives you the information that you need to make your decisions, your expert conclusions.
I think that's the number one thing a lot of people outside of forensics don't realize, especially watching a lot of the shows or whatever, is that a lot of the objective is, was this person that is suspected the one actually behind the keyboard? That's so important. And unless they were filming themselves doing said thing, typing at their keyboard, a lot of the work is chaining different information to put a person in that chair at that keyboard.
Yeah, that's correct. It's kind of and what's interesting about FTK, the tabs are really interesting because for me, when I teach forensics, and so when I teach forensics generally or specifically to a tool, with FTK, even when we were teaching as part of the anti-terrorism program with the State Department, FTK was one of our primary tools. We taught thousands of law enforcement officers throughout the world. And throughout without the tabs on top, it really allows you to isolate what you're looking for. The last tab I always ask investigators to look at is graphics tab. That is what we call a shiny object. The graphics tab, unless you're looking for child pornography, in case of child pornography, it really is going to take you to a place where you're just going to waste so much time. So avoid the graphics tab at all costs until the very end, unless, again, your case is related to child pornography.
Right. We've tried to do a lot of work there, especially in Mac recently for our system information tab. But we had that information, but we cranked it up now to where we've increased the amount of data. And you're right. Like most of the time you're trying to put somebody behind the computer. So the first thing you need to do is check logins, right? What user was logged in, what devices were plugged in, because that may indicate, hey, this is Gus's jump drive plugged in. Yeah. So the place I like to start, and where we train people to start a lot of the times, is either that system summary tab or the overview tab, because it's going to get you to the artifacts I think that matter, if not.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't know how you did it, but that system summary or system, what are you guys calling it now?
Yeah, I think it's system summary now.
That's what I thought. System summary. So system summary is it's right there. System summary. So yes, system summary is incredible. I don't know how your tool is able to extract the information so quickly. How you did it was great. Like you said, we call it from the time you press that power button. That's when it starts. Think about the flow of your analysis from that power on button. What's the next screen that comes up? Is it our login screen? It's a SAM system. Certainly security, all of the registry files that'll boot up. Then you have the NT user file. You've got, the individual user who is doing what with the user account. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a physical person at that moment. We know it's a user. We know someone is touching the keyboard. We know somebody is creating artifacts, but is it the person whose username is their name? For instance, if my username was Gus Dimitrelos, am I actually the one doing the analysis, or am I creating the artifacts on the computer? Am I using the keyboard to search? Am I using the keyboard to create documents? Am I making purchases? Am I making travel reservations? So these are those physical and digital events that I keep looking for, which I call digital sandwiching. And they're critical. And it's common sense. When you're speaking to a jury or testifying, you got to put somebody at the keyboard. You got to point and say, that is the person 100%. You're not in the room with them. We know that. You're not in the room. You're not working with them. You don't know the person. But are they the persons or persons who are committing the crimes in your case?
Right. I love that. And when I was an investigator, or I was an analyst, I worked in a state lab. And the way that it worked there was the detective would be out in their jurisdiction. They would see stuff and bring it to me to work in the lab. this creates kind of an interesting thing for digital sandwiching because I can do the stuff that you're talking about only from the digital aspect, though. I don't have any other evidence to directly to correlate that with. And so it really encourages tight communication between, say, the lab and your field agent or the person with the boots on the ground there. Another challenge for me was I wasn't from Ohio. So a lot of the little tiny nuances to maybe communication or mentioning locations or people or things was a lot more difficult for me at first because I had to dig a lot deeper and to accomplish that digital sandwiching. So I think where we're doing this from a digital side, it's important to work closely with those who, if possible, not all cases do, but work with those that have boots on the ground as well.
Yeah, some of the examples, you made a great point. So, for instance, a murder case. We did the Lil Boosie is a rapper. He's a famous rapper. He was alleged to have killed an individual in Baton Rouge. The DA hired me to do the analysis on the phones and the computers and assist with the cellular triangulation part of it, which is not part of what we're talking about here. But what we discovered during our analysis with FTK on the systems is that one of the photographs we uncovered had a person getting a tattoo across the chest that says, "Hey, Boosie," and then you can see an AK-47 in the middle, and then the W underneath. And so I asked the detective to go take a photograph of the individual, which at the time the tattoo was being blocked from the tattoo artist. So he took a picture and it said, "Hey, Boosie, AK-47, who's next?" And that was the killer. That's the one who gave us the confession. When you pull the XF data, the metadata from the photograph, it gave us a longitude and latitude. Where do you think this tattoo was being made on this individual? In the living room of Little Boosie, the rapper. So you can pinpoint exactly where this tattoo was being made. And the tattoo was 2 weeks after the murder. Got convicted, went to jail, probably still in jail. But that's that physical aspect. Even though it's a photograph, we know a tattoo is also physical. And when we pull the data, it put the location of that tattoo and tattoo artist inside of Little Boosie, the rapper's living room.
I think that's super important from multiple aspects. I think a lot of times, and this has caused a lot of by time crunch, we've all got a million cases to work. So you're just trying to get through them quick. It's you need to do more than just look at the top level evidence. Like you said, there's a picture with a tattoo there. Okay, but what else is there in that stuff? We need to be able to see that information, like location data. When was it taken? You need to look a little bit beyond the content. And you talk about the graphics tab, which, like you said, in certain cases are great. But I think the view of the graphics tab almost encourages this top level, just scan that thumbnail pane, right? Just get that scroll going of the thumbnails. But there's so much more information underneath those photos, location that you wouldn't have got had you said, "Oh, hey, here's a picture of the tattoo." Yeah. Cool. And one of the things, it was a few versions ago, but this was a push that I was doing, is like, we need to bring that information out in FTK and bring it top level. Show the investigator that location data so that they don't have to click something else. When they're looking at it, they also see that location. And I think that's super important to bring that metadata as far forward as possible.
You did. As a matter of fact, when you go to the graphics tab now in FTK, you do have that, the device that created the photograph, the latitude, longitude, when it was digitized. Those are all there. I don't need to add those columns anywhere, I appreciate that effort. It's critical because, it eliminates the time I have to go add a column detail and configure a new custom columns. For me, I want it to be there. We know it's there. If it's not, it's not. I can sort right away. So the first thing I do, graphics, sort by latitude. I want to see any photographs that were taken, which is, again, that physical component. The physical component, if you're using an iPhone to take a photograph, we know what model it is. We know when you took it. We know what operating system it was taken with on that iPhone. And we know that where the photograph is taken. It's important because that, again, is that digital sandwiching. It's someone who has a physical event with another device. And that device is an iPhone. But where does the photograph go from an iPhone? How does it get onto your computer? Right? So that's the key. So we talk about, today we have such a plethora of information. You have a device in your hand, you take a photograph. Where does that photograph go normally? It goes to your cloud, an account that you have. So the iCloud account has a login. And that login has a syncing capability. So if you're syncing your data, that photograph is going to sync to what? Your other devices, right? Whatever you have. So in this case, we have a MacBook. So we know that photographs were taken using an iPhone and they were synced with this MacBook. So that's important because now it's not the MacBook taking the photograph. We used to call those flat files, like a Word document that just sits on a computer. It has life now. It has that circulation. It goes from an iPhone, a human being taking a photograph to an iCloud account, synced with a MacBook or an iPad, whatever the other device is, and that item will be on all those devices. And then after that, what happens? Do you share it? Do you open it? Do you modify it? And so that you're looking for those other attributes to change that digital file. The human will change that. And so you look for those attributes, again, to put somebody at that keyboard of that computer.
Absolutely. And I think that plays so strong into other aspects of the investigation, because if we look at, say, like your iPhone example, well, if I dump the iPhone, under normal circumstances, I'm not going to get email because that's protected in a different way or it's stored in the cloud. But you know what does store the email is that MacBook. Right. And so if I can use that iPhone and track those accounts and find another device, maybe I can find my evidence that I couldn't get off of the iPhone on a MacBook, or maybe, some other way. So you can have success there by doing that trail, that workflow of think about what the user is going to do. How do I apply that user workflow, that user story to how I'm going to investigate, and where can I get some other data?
Yeah. And iCloud, again, we're talking about an iOS. I know Google has their own, but let's stick with Mac. When you have your when you have iCloud, what else is being synced? Your browser history, is that being synced? Yes. Notes, yes. So you're looking at all this information. Are there logins to your account? Even though there's no email, let's say, for instance, what you describe on an iPhone, on the Mac, what is an email? What do you do with email these days? I mean, we're not talking about the traditional email I sent, you sent. You buy things, right? So we all buy stuff online. Yeah. I don't care if you use Amazon. I don't care if you use Apple Store. I don't care what you use. You're going to buy stuff, and those receipts end up in your email. And what are you buying? So now you're looking for receipts. One of the key terms I'll look for is like a receipt with an actual document, right? So you can see actual files, filter that out with FTK, because I want to see receipts. And somehow you've integrated OCR as well into what you're doing now, which is great. I don't have to do a separate OCR analysis during setup. Somehow you're already including it, because now it's finding items which are scanned that have the word receipt. So I get my receipts, and in this case, I was able to find a receipt of an application called Dr. Phone. It's from Wondershare. It's like sort of a mini hack. It's not a hack. Like if you want to recover data from your iPhone, you could. You recover data from your iPhone, your iPad, or someone else's iPad and iPhone, right? With permission or without. The tool doesn't care. And so from there, you buy the tool, you get the receipt, you download it. So now you're looking for the application. Do you find it? Yes. After you look for the application, it is installed? Yes. After it is installed, is it used? Yes. And how is it used? And so you're looking where all the data is stored. In this case, I was able to find dozens of extractions, basically mini extractions of iOS devices, iPhones and iPads. And so that's that physical and digital, because how does the iPhone get plugged into a computer to get extracted? Physically, you have to have the cable, right? So in order to have the cable, there's that physical component. You're always looking for that, whether it's a USB drive, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad that's being extracted or plugged into, you'll have that artifact. And so it was effortless for me to determine, was this MacBook, did somebody have physical control? Were they plugging devices in? Another digital sandwich of someone sitting at the keyboard, not something happening as part of the system.
I think that's a big part of showing intent as well. Nobody is going to accidentally walk through that workflow that you just described. There's too much going on. You bought software, you got the email, you clicked the download link, you installed it, then plugged a device, and it's very concrete on this was the intent. And so if we were just to go with this was not their iPhone, it wasn't like, oh, I was just trying to plug it in and charge it and the files came up. You're not going to be able to sell that story. And that's a lot of what forensics is, I think, is digital forensics is alibi makers or alibi breakers. You're building a timeline, building a story around what the user did or didn't do. And we don't say that user, it's just a user, right? Until we can tie it
Yeah,
together. To
in
Go
child,
ahead.
a great example is child pornography cases. When I testified, I think I had 177 federal cases with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and a majority of them were CV cases, probably 100 plus. In those cases, you're always looking for that USB device. We know in most cases, people who are interested in child pornography, download child pornography, search for child pornography, usually like to store child pornography. And one place they like to store it, they love to store it, is on external devices, because whether they're cataloging or keeping it away from their family or someone who's looking at their computer, they want that device. You always go for that plug-in device because, again, you're describing what you just said. Hackers don't plug in USB devices that are not connected to the computer. Hackers don't copy stuff and open stuff on the USB device that's plugged in by a user. So that plug-in action really does put you in a good position to prove that the person did knowingly possess child pornography.
Absolutely. I think it also does a couple things where if you can identify that either in a triage situation or early in your investigation, you know what you're searching for as well. A remote device, show the type, the serial number, all that sort of stuff. And it allows you to, because warrants by definition should be and are very specific. Why are you looking in drawers for computer data? Well, there could be jump drives, there could be this or that, and it helps you accomplish your job.
Yeah, when you're looking for physical, when you're connecting the dots, let's say, for instance, you don't have that plugin. Let's say you're looking for information on the computer. What is unique to you? Is a driver's license unique to you? A scan. We all scan these days. Right. Is a insurance card unique to you? When we're looking at that information, whether it's credit card information, whether it's signatures, one thing everybody misses, even though I was in a Secret Service, I do enjoy the fraud cases. And as far as signatures, always looking for files that are signed, looking for documents. You purchase something, you see a signature, whether it's a house, whether it's a car. You're looking for that human being aspect, the person who's touching that piece of paper to sign it. And so that piece of paper is also that digital sandwich that shows that someone is in possession of this computer with a document that has your signature, that is original to you, that you make a purchase for some item.
Absolutely. That brings me back to what I had forgotten, and you nailed it perfectly. Get out of my head. Is that unique to you? And a lot of that is combined with your interview, right? You're going on scene and you're going to be talking to them. And it might be like, hey, Gus, who all has access to your phone? And a lot of times it'll be like, nobody else has access to this phone. And okay. And who has access to your email? And they're like, no one has access to my email. And you're like, okay, perfect. So then when you come back to your case and you see these receipts or you see these communications, you see this content, you're combining that digital sandwiching, right, with that interview where they said, nope, I'm the only one who has access. Okay, so I see activity in your email. That kind of that plays into putting them at that keyboard. Well, if the email was accessed and they said nobody else has access, then it must be you accessing your email.
Yeah, right? What's important when you said there is that you asked with the interview, when you have this device, an iPhone, I keep going back, is that an iPhone has features. When you look at what's being backed up, just go look at your backup on your iPhone. Just go see what's being backed up. And those are the elements, let's say voice memos, right? Let's say it's the newer applications on an iPhone. What is being backed up, SMS? Look at that backup. And so that's what you're going to grab on the cloud, but it's also being synced with other devices. So don't discount an older iPhone that's not connected. We always say, grab everything. Grab everything. We'll sort it later. Look for the backups on these devices. See what's being backed up to the cloud. Because we have that window, right? We have that small window to get that information from the cloud. But a lot of it is going to be unique to you. And so that whether it's SMS, whether it's voice memo, whether it's voice calls, anything that puts you in use of that computer system or that phone, we're in a different era, and everything's on the cloud. Everything's backed up, just generally and by default. You have to manually uncheck items that you don't want backed up, whether it's photographs or SMS. Look at that information because you can't necessarily know what's being backed up. Sometimes we have to manipulate the phone. We have to look at the phone manually to see what's there because some of the information or evidence doesn't transfer. So we see that there's information that's being synced to an account on in the cloud, we want that. We want to get that warrant out. We want to get it right away. We want to get that data, because that, again, is another layer of you being in possession of the phone and creating that data.
You know what I like about this is back in the day, well, even still today, but before mobile phones really took off, we kind of use the same concept of the user not knowing how computers work with temporary internet files, right? They would browse this data and we would find thumbnails and cache files and all sorts of stuff that they never knew was being generated. And that's the same thing we're exploiting, quote unquote, today, is that users don't really know what data is being backed up, which is good for us, where it's being synced. And also, even outside of your first party like iClouds, I've had a case where we had a chat app and the chat app was creating backups without their, well, I mean, it was with their, they consented to it on install, of course, but yeah. And we pulled it down from there to get all the relevant chat and call information, user information, what phone they used it on. Because to your point, they had switched phones between the time the crime had been allegedly committed by this person to the time that it was seized. And it was interesting trying to track that through, combined with the records we get from, in this case, it was an iPhone. So we got records back from Apple, trying to put all those pieces together between an old phone and a new phone. What came over from the old phone? What's the new phone? Where has it been? And yeah, so that information is huge. And those clouds, that cloud data can really help you chain and digital sandwich yourself into these, hey, this person was here at this keyboard most likely because X, Y, Z, and you're
and I have a report out there. You can find it. It's one of the reports with the Washington Examiner. I think it's the first one. What that report includes is something important. Your Apple devices, your cloud, when you change that device, yes, we can get the call detail records and see if your IMEI has changed to know you switched your phone out. Yes. But if you look inside a computer, especially a MacBook, it stores every time a device connects to an iCloud. So for instance, if you did switch it, you don't need a warrant. If you already have the computer, you already have a search warrant on the computer, you can find that information. You can see every device that's connected through the cloud account. And you're going to be able to see, I'm missing an iPad, I'm missing a MacBook, I'm missing 3 iPhones. Whatever they are, you know that they're there. You know by serial number, you know by model. So it's stored in the MacBook. You just have to know where to get it. FTK rips it out for you, but you still have to know where it's at.
Yeah, physically go find it. And that's huge. And I have a test iPhone that we use to build data for. And yeah, if you were to analyze that, you're going to look at that and be like, oh, there was an iPhone. I can't remember. It was like an iPhone 5, 5S, and a 6 and a 6S as I rolled these backups forward, And so if you wanted historical data, you're going to be like, hey, does this guy still have those old devices? Which I do. Lay sitting in a drawer here. Yeah. So it can help you point to where you need to go.
I mean, we talked about it last time up. We were very fortunate in some ways, even though society, we call it the Kim Kardashian syndrome, where we are so ostentatious. We have so much information about ourselves shared. But the biggest one on the devices that I see, this is always about trends, it's just selfies. I know it's a silly word, but it's just a selfie. So the selfie is important because a lot of times when people take selfies, they're going to take them in a mirror sometimes to be able to say what they're wearing, how they look. But what's in their hand? It's the device. We see it. We know that's the device. And then from the metadata, you're matching up what the metadata, XF data is saying, yep, it's an iPhone like XS. Yep, here it is. That's in his hand. Selfies are great. Selfies, again, do what? Put you at the keyboard. Again, this is the button on a phone, which is going to get synced with your iCloud, but it still eventually puts you at that physical level, which is the digital sandwiching.
Yeah. And that, even for alibi makers or something, maybe there's a selfie at a place and they're alleging you were somewhere. I had a case like this. They had a picture of themselves at a bar, a selfie, EXIF data and everything, and it had it recorded in there. And it's like, this is what the data reports, that they were at this bar at this time. So, either you're going to have to do some other investigation and timelines outside of what we're looking at, or these are the wrong people, because at least what the data is saying, this is where they were. And super important. But like you said, you can see so much in those and correlate that with the metadata that you're reporting. It's funny to me, the iPhone has a file, and off the top of my head, I can't remember it, but it'll actually record the color of the iPhone in that file. And I'm like, why does Apple track that? But hey, if you get a backup and you pull that file, you can parse out and be like, yep, this was a gray and black iPhone. And then, yep, I have a gray and black iPhone. It's like, but hey, that little types of data help you chain it back.
That's how granular you get, right? You get granular. And I always teach, when we teach geolocation, again, FTK has a phenomenal job of ripping everything out. When you teach geolocation, you always granular, which is the device. And there's that middle level. I call it the cellular or social media level. It's like cellular triangulation, social media. And then there's the satellite, GPS data. So when you're looking at geolocation data, there really are 3 levels that we focus on. And, integrating them into your investigation is always helpful. You need it because what you're describing is, again, a physical event, someone at a bar. And so that's important when you're establishing, if someone was at a keyboard when something was created or downloaded or wired versus at a bar, hanging out when somebody else is using the computer. And so it's nice to know that, that level of physical interaction with the computer is there. You just have to be able to find it.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to ask you about, you have your company, Cyber Forensics, which SEO dream, right?
It really is.
Yeah. Perfect.
Number one at
amazing.
DHS, which is insane. If you're Googling.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So you get called, hey, we've got this system. We need you to work. This computer, this phone, this case, this thing. Cool. I know you've come across duplicitous data before in your investigations. First off, what is duplicitous data, and what's your first reaction?
We see it mostly in civil cases, domestic cases, where one spouse is leaving the other and they're searching their computer. They're just finding dirt. They find accounts on Tinder. They found accounts on Facebook. He's communicating on Messenger with individuals. And so what they'll do is they create a secret, or not secret, just a folder on the computer, and they'll just start copying data over. Not good, right? Doesn't mean that all the other data on a computer is not forensically sound. It's just not something that should be done, because eventually what a spouse might do if they find, let's say, child pornography, they'll turn the computer over to law enforcement. They'll say, hey, I created a folder that I know my husband or wife is creating child pornography or downloading it, and here's the folder. Law enforcement has to deal with that. Not something that you or I would do. It's more of someone who's a novice and in possession of a computer system. And that's always bad practice. There's no way you can relay that to someone who's a non-forensic person, but it happens.
Yeah. So what's your first, so you've come across that. How do you identify that maybe in the absence of, hey, I call in, I'm like, Gus, this is the machine, and I copied all this stuff in. Let's say that doesn't happen. You're just told, hey, I just got this computer, work it for this thing. How are you going to go through, you see this stuff and identify that, yeah, that's probably duplicitous?
Yeah, timeline. So when you create something, even if it's on a computer, you'll create it in a new folder. A new folder is created, data's copied over. And so when you're looking at those elements, you're saying, all right, this computer, let's say a police officer, sitting at his desk, or it could be anybody, just a normal person, says, oh, let me just turn this computer on. Let me look to see what's going on. Ooh, this is important. That timeline of whether that system was in someone else's possession, whether it's in a newer possession or your possession, is really important. And the other part of it is hashing. We know that if we find duplicitous information, duplicate data, we know we can just filter that to see what's duplicate and, or not duplicate in every case. And so it's nice to be able to see 2 elements, a timeline and whether something is hashed and duplicated.
For sure. 2 things. This goes to analyze the stuff that you find. Let's look beyond the top level content. But also, I think it's important to be aware of how your tool functions, in that if your tool is omitting duplicate data, make sure that you know that. If you've turned on identified duplicates, make sure that it's showing you those, or at least giving you some indication that you're looking at the right thing. we have a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want to see duplicates, which I get. You want to minimize that, but those duplicates can tell a story that might be important later. If you didn't identify that duplicitous data and maybe you included that as evidence or something into your count of something,
you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, you're going to be hammered because you're presenting that saying it's evidence, and they're going to say, well, wasn't this in fact in possession of law enforcement at the time? And we've had those cases. Don't think we have not. We were like, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And so you're seeing that, and you're just protecting yourself on a stand. Getting cross on a stand, which I do enjoy, it's still, you have to know every single aspect of the computer because you're not allowed to bring FTK to the stand and do searches while they're asking you questions. It just doesn't happen.
That is so key for your forensic examiners. It seems like an obvious one, but sometimes it's make sure you know what you're reporting on, which seems basic, but it's not just, I found this picture, I threw it in my report, I'm going to go. Okay, that's a huge part. You got to find the evidence, but where did it come from? How did it get there? Is there anything that's going to cause you to question those findings? Like, why is it in a new folder 6 months after another duplicate and it's in with all these other ones that are duplicates from other areas? Okay, maybe I need to start asking questions. Who's had this machine? Did a wife or another officer or somebody else get a hold of it? Just so important that either A, if you're not a professional, you leave it to the professionals. Okay. If you find something, just immediately call. And if you are a professional, the need for training and the understanding of what are you looking at so that you can properly identify it and protect yourself on the stand.
Yeah. Look, in this case, all cases with Mac OS, FTK just fillets those images. It was phenomenal to see. The other thing I keep telling people is filters. You got to work with filters. Your filtering system is there's no second. There isn't a second place in that category. If you look at all the filters that you can choose, I create so many filters. And here's a little tip for anybody creating filters. Always name those filters with the number 1 at the front so that they're at the top. So when you're ready to delete them, you can just delete them from your case because they're specific to a case. So whether it's, let's say, for instance, you're looking for a filter that says, all right, I need an email that contains the word cyberforensics.com, let's say, for instance, case insensitive. So that's a filter. You can do case sensitive, case insensitive, not the word, yes, the word. So you can have, exactly case, you can do case, uppercase, lowercase. I think it's phenomenal. So FTK filters are just so powerful, and it just reduces the data sets down to just what you need, not the 7 million artifacts I have in this case.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. So first off, case-specific filters, throw an underscore and number 1 on there to get them to the top. The little FTK tips and tricks there from Gus. Absolutely. The other thing, though, if you're building filters for something that's not case specific, say, hey, when I look at a Mac, I want to see these 10 files or something. You can share those filters, save them out so that they're available every case. But the other cool thing is, so let's say I'm working a case now and I'm like, hey, Gus mentioned this filter. I can email Gus and Gus can send me an XML file and I just load it straight into FTK. Now I have that.
Yeah,
and we're good to go.
On that, and I love that. To remind me of this, always export your filters. So the ones you create for that case, export them to your case folder. So later on, because remember when we do cases, it could be a year or 2 years before we testify in some cases. So if you export those, because what we always do, we always upgrade our computers, we always update FTK. So you're updating. What you do forget to do is export your filters, because now you have to go back into that case before you testify, and you got to do the whole thing again and try to remember what the heck you did last time. And that was a year or 2 ago. And 100 cases ago.
That's so true. And there was a joke in the office because I'd work a case, and once I moved to the next one, people would ask me, "Hey, what about that Gus case?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." Like I would just flush it because it was on to the next one, And then when trial came up, it was like, all right, let me load this case back up, read the reports, read everything to try to get that fresh back in my mind. And so absolutely saving as much of that work, that those filters, not only will it help it with that case, but maybe another case you're like, oh, hey, I got to look for cyber forensics again because this site's super sketchy. It's not, but you can just like load that back in. You don't have to build
Yeah,
it again.
and I always
Save
tell
you
people,
time.
because we are in a Windows environment, I promise you that Bill Gates will not charge you extra for saving more data or making your file names longer or keeping bigger notes. It's the same cost. It's free. All right, so just do it.
Gus, thanks for coming on. I know you got to bounce. Thanks for your time today. Maybe we'll do a sequel here in the short future. Have a great
Anytime,
day.
Justin.
Thank you.
Have a great day.